My name is Dave Evers. I'm the manager of business development, uh, executive and professional development at the University of Auckland Business School. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, Effective People Development, Investing in the Future of Organizations. So it's really, I think, a very topical and important webinar. We have great speakers that I'll introduce in a few minutes. And we're partnering in PwC on this. And this webinar is really very relevant to what we do in executive and professional development, building New Zealand's capability for productivity and transformation and learning. So just quickly, what we do in executive and professional development, we're a division of the business school that provides non-degree executive training. So we run custom programs. So we work with companies and organizations to run leadership training programs. We run short courses, so 2-day short courses. You can see on the slide some of our short courses: finance for non-financial managers, adaptive strategy, emotional intelligence. So we have a host of short courses that people join, running throughout the year, listed on our website. And right now, we are also recruiting for our flagship program, which is transitioning to the C-suite. And that is a program designed for mid to senior level executives that are looking to move into senior leadership. And it's really a senior leadership program. It'll start in August and run through November, and allows managers to move into senior management, develop strategic thinking and an innovative mindset, work on your communication, presentation, and negotiation skills. So following the webinar, I'll send you a follow-up with information on these programs if you want to have a look as you go through, after going through our webinar. So with that, I'd just like to, again, welcome you to the Short Sharp webinar. And really what we're going to be talking about here is moving from lifelong learning, which has been kind of the common buzzword and thinking, to lifelong people development and thinking about that for your organization, upskilling and reskilling within your organization. Looking at hard skills versus soft skills and the importance of developing both, the training cycle, and finally, and most importantly, is really thinking about how upskilling and reskilling can drive the business success, develop, motivate, and retain your staff. So that's what we're going to go through. We're going to keep this. I'll introduce the speakers in a second. The way we'll run this is we'll have a presentation, organic presentation of the two speakers, have some discussion. And please, as we're going through the presentation, feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A, and I'll be monitoring that, and we can feed those questions to the speakers as we're going along. We'll also save time at the end. The presentation will go about 30 minutes, and then we'll save time at the end for Q&A as we finish. So really pleased to have two impressive speakers. And the way we've typically worked these short, sharp webinars is we like to partner with industry. So we're getting practical skills from industry as well as an academic working together. So we're giving you practice and theory combined together. So we're pleased to have Greer Cox, who is a partner at PwC and human and capital and reward manager. And she has a background in industrial relations, HR consulting, and project management. Greer is passionate about delivering large, complex projects and has worked in many projects, including a significant initial public offering on the London Stock Exchange and implementing new remuneration and reward frameworks here in New Zealand for the New Zealand Defence Force and Opus International. And my colleague, Deepika Jindal, who's a professional teaching fellow at the University of Auckland and has research interests that lie in job crafting, HR and practices. And outside our role at the university, she's a branch president of the HRNZ academic branch and the Auckland branch committee member. So really some very experienced speakers that are really going to lead our conversation as we go through. So from here, I'd like to turn it over to Greer to start the presentation, and her and Deepika will be going through.
Kia ora, thanks everyone. I'll just quickly share my screen. So welcome to the discussion. It's a topic I'm really excited to talk to you about. It's no secret that the future of work is changing rapidly, thanks not only to advances in automation, AI, and technology, but also growing ESG and other focuses of organizations and governments. As a result, the skills needed for the workforce of tomorrow are also evolving, with many traditional jobs becoming obsolete and new ones emerging. That's why reskilling has become more important than ever before. By learning new skills and keeping up with technological advancements, individuals can future-proof their careers and remain competitive in the job market. Reskilling can be a daunting prospect for employers, particularly as they grapple with ongoing retention and attraction issues. However, when employers feel that their employer values their professional development and is investing in their future, they're more likely to feel engaged and committed to their job. This, in turn, leads to higher retention rates, as well as positive workplace culture, where employees feel valued and supported. Today, we'll explore some of the key topics relating to upskilling and reskilling, and why New Zealand businesses should consider this a critical part of their people management approach. So why is there currently a focus? You'll have heard a lot about it recently. The world of work evolves rapidly. For success, it's essential to have a team that's agile, adaptable, and ready to tackle new challenges head on. That's where reskilling comes in. It helps keep your employees up to date with the latest technologies and best practices, allowing your organization to stay ahead of the curve and stay innovative. By investing in your staff's professional development, you're not only keeping them happy and fulfilled in their jobs, but you're also setting your organization up for success in the long run. Here I've included some figures from recent research conducted by PwC that shows how important reskilling and upskilling is within the modern business context. These areas start to describe why reskilling and upskilling is currently such a hot topic and is likely to remain that way into the future. So these include how fast the world is changing. There's an increased need for agility and adaptability within the workforce. If you think about how fast your organization is changing, you'll see that constantly there's a need to kind of reinvent what work and jobs are. There's also increased automation and technological innovation, and we'll touch on the innovation of ChatGPT later in this presentation. But we also know that 84% of New Zealand business leaders are thinking about automating processes or looking at investing in technology in the next year. There's a need to create the skills required within the workforce. So we know that there's a real labour shortage in New Zealand, which means that the market may not be able to provide the skills that you're looking for when you are thinking about transformation or changing what you need in your workforce. So what are your options for how you can kind of fill that gap, and how can you reskill your existing workforce to be able to meet that challenge? At the same time, we also know that employees are really keen to learn. So we know that 77% of respondents last year in New Zealand noted that they were ready to learn new skills and retrain. So there's a great opportunity and a kind of willingness on both sides. We've heard a lot recently about the need for employees to have a growth mindset and about the importance of lifelong learning. Deepika, what's the most important recent thinking on this topic?
Well, Gray, as you have rightly mentioned, skill mismatches will be exacerbated by automation, artificial intelligence, and other technological innovations. And added to that mix is an increase in life expectancy, which means people are likely to spend many years working and learning new skills. And all the growth mindset and lifelong learning are evergreen concepts, and I don't think they're ever going to run out of flavor. I think it would be helpful for organizations to see reskilling and upskilling through the lens of lifelong employability, a concept that Beth Davies and her colleagues wrote about in the 2019 edition of McKinsey Quarterly. So lifelong employability is about helping people continuously and successfully adapt as the economy evolves. So the proponents of lifelong employability argue that rather than focusing on retraining and reskilling as ends to themselves, we can reframe these as means to the specific end of remaining relevant and employable for as long as one desires to be in the workforce. So when we are focusing on lifelong employability rather than simply lifelong learning, we are helping employees remain relevant and be excited about their career prospects, which then obviously has a spillover effect on retention. So lifelong employability offers a way to meet the challenges of a changing landscape and coming from a sense of hope rather than fatalism.
Thank you. And as Deepika just mentioned, reskilling and upskilling can help to create loyalty and encourage talent retention. This can also reduce the cost of recruitment for organisations, especially at a time where we have a really tight labour market. We all know that employees are expecting more from the working experience, and this goes beyond remuneration. You may have heard of quiet quitting, but have you heard of quiet hiring? The Harvard Business Review recently described this phenomenon as including encouraging internal talent mobility and providing specific upskilling opportunities to help employers meet evolving organisational needs. Reskilling and upskilling are also crucial to bridging key skills gaps. A 2022 Hayes survey stated that 82% of employers are concerned about skills shortages within their organisation, and 92% of professionals say their role requires them to learn skills right now. Skills development must be supported with clear internal pathways and an understanding of how skills align to progression within the organisation or lateral movement to other challenging positions. With these two areas working in tandem, you may be able to better unlock the capacity and capability of your existing workforce. A key trend in the HR space for 2023 is the subtle shift away from professional qualifications and certifications to encourage a wider pool of applicants for a job. Organisations can do this by removing formal education and experience requirements from job postings and instead reaching out directly to internal or external candidates from non-traditional backgrounds who may not have access to certain professional opportunities or be even aware of them. As an organisation that accepts the reskilling and upskilling challenge, you can position yourself to benefit from the widest possible pool of applicants, vastly enhancing your employee value proposition within the market. Finally, fostering a culture of continuous learning and improvement through ongoing reskilling and upskilling can lead to new ideas and innovation that ultimately help your organisation remain competitive and agile. By investing in your staff professional development, you're investing in the long-term success of your business. Deepika, what are the wider benefits of reskilling either for individuals or for society?
Well, Gray, you have highlighted some key benefits for employers, and obviously there are lots of good things that employers can get by upskilling and reskilling their employees. However, reskilling and upskilling benefits individuals as well as societies. When we think about the benefits to individuals, and especially when we see that through the lens of lifelong employability that I talked about earlier, both reskilling and upskilling leads to increased motivation because it shifts the focus from learning to employability and remaining relevant. When people work in jobs where they are able to utilize their skills, they're happier, they're more satisfied, and they have an enhanced sense of well-being. And upskilling gives tools to people to reach their full potential, and it offers the possibility of success through both higher wages and career advancement. So Fabian Steffrey from the University of Oxford studied 4,810 online freelancers and found that there are added economic benefits to individuals from cross-skilling. So cross-skilling is learning a new skill, but from a different domain. So there are economic benefits for individuals. It also has a big impact on the entire employee experience because people feel valued when their organization invests in them. And there's a big societal impact of reskilling and upskilling. When organizations make skill investments, it impacts the entire ecosystem. A 2021 World Economic Forum reported that said that wide-scale investment in upskilling has the potential to boost GDP by 6.5 billion USD by 2030. And the report also says that upskilling could lead to a net creation of 5.3 million jobs by 2030 through technology augmenting and complementing and not necessarily replacing human labor. At the same time, the report also says that GDP is not the only measure. An educated and upskilled society where people feel they are able to use their abilities to the fullest leads to a happier society too. And you can use the social progress index to measure progress on your initiatives. So this index measures how well a society provides its people with the things they really care about. And their framework has 3 dimensions. And the third one, opportunity, talks about inclusiveness and access to advanced education. And education does not necessarily mean formal education. It includes both formal and informal avenues of learning.
Awesome, thank you. And I think as Deepika and I both touched on, there are issues with skills shortages and how you can use your current workforce at the moment. And it's becoming increasingly clear that the tight labour market is going to continue to create skills shortages, both in skilled workers and key areas of expertise for some time to come. That's why it's essential for business leaders to invest in talent and technology at the same time. Leaders have an opportunity to leverage automation alongside their employees to ease the pressure and drive transformation in the long term. It's not about replacing jobs wholesale with automation, but rather using technology to take care of specific tasks so that employees can focus on more meaningful and skilled work. Leaders can consider how they can use technology to maximize their employees' existing skills and create more capacity for high-value work. These are critical issues that can help organizations improve their efficiency, boost employee morale, and attract top talent to the company. On this page, you'll see a bit of a case study, which kind of gets into the space of thinking about what skills might be required. So when we're thinking about hiring staff, having great soft skills is becoming increasingly important. While technical competency is still important, being able to effectively communicate and direct new technology is becoming more critical than ever. As AI continues to advance, the ability to leverage this functionality will be essential for success in many roles. For example, imagine being able to direct an Excel spreadsheet to perform a complex analysis on a range of data just by asking a question, without needing to know the right formula or understanding how it's applied. How might this impact the role of analysts within your organization? AI is not going to be a panacea, particularly in the HR space. For example, we know that in New York, there was a new law put into place on the 1st of January this year that limits employees' use of AI recruiting tools and requires organizations to undergo annual bias audits and publicly disclose hiring metrics. However, there are clear business areas where the types of automation and efficiency offered by AI will have a benefit. And it's worth considering how this can impact your organization. I'm sure we've all had a go at ChatGPT and found it in some ways insightful. While AI may not remove whole jobs, it is likely, increasingly likely, to be incorporated into work and tasks in the future, and it will change the things we value from our workforce and how we all do our work. What becomes important is the human element, the things that AI still struggles with, empathizing, dealing with nuance, and understanding each other. Deepika, did you have anything else you wanted to add around the importance of these human traits?
That's a very interesting question about human traits, Greer, and there is an ongoing debate on whether one can learn human traits or is one born with them so they can't be learned. I was recently reading a book called The Peak Mind by Dr. Amishi Jha. Amishi is a professor of psychology at the University of Miami, and she does a lot of work around attention. In this book, she talks about the power of attention, working memory, and mindfulness, and its impact on learning. And in that, she gives an example of resilience as a human trait. And she says that there is this idea that a lot of us believe that resilience is something you either have or you don't have, that it has to do exclusively with how you grow up or your personality or your coping skills. She says that what we know from the science of attention is that cognitive resilience is something you can train and build. So like resilience, there are other human traits that can be learned with specific and I think focus interventions, although the degree to which you can learn them will vary from person to person. And research says that learning is also dependent on an individual's approach to learning, whether it is surface approach to learning, it is deep approach to learning, or achievement approach to learning. When the motivation is extrinsic or external, people have a surface approach to learning. So in this situation, when you try to teach them any human traits, they will learn just because they have been asked to do it. So effectiveness will be very low. A deep approach to learning implies genuine interest. And the aim here is to learn as much as possible because of intrinsic or internal motivation, because you're genuinely interested in it. And the achieving approach to learning draws from both internal motivation, that is a desire to genuinely learn, and external motivation, which could be a reward or praise or encouragement. So the question is, how do we communicate the need to our employees for them to learn key human traits that will be valuable and will likely not be substituted by technology? So how do we ignite that intrinsic motivation apart from just an extrinsic motivation to learn those human traits and their value in work?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's really interesting, Deepika. So something you just sort of addressed it, but one of the things I was thinking about is you'll hear a lot about AI replacing, taking jobs away, right? That a lot of people won't be needed anymore as AI takes over job functions. So is what you're talking about, is it a new set of skills that need to be developed? So AI is going to be doing certain things, but people need to take on new skills to do other things that AI can't do. Is it gaining skills to understand how to use AI? Is that another area? I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely, Dave, that learning how to use AI is it's another skill, right? And as I said previously, that the World Economic Forum report from 2021 says that there will be a net creation of 5.3 million jobs. So the word is net creation, which means there will be some jobs lost because of automation, but then there will also be more jobs gained. For example, think about analysis, think about creativity, think about how to engage with technology and get the best out of it. So there will be a net creation of 5.3 million jobs, which is huge, which means there's an opportunity here to work alongside technology. So technology may not necessarily take away, replace jobs, but it is about empowering people to use their technology to do a better job. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there has long been this question of, are the robots coming for one's job? But actually, I think the question is slightly different. It's what parts of my job could be automated to allow me to free up time to do more, the more strategic thinking or other things. And I think that's where there's going to be a combination of the need to learn new skills, including how to use AI, just as, lots of us had to learn how to use things like Excel, but also thinking about what is the nuance that AI won't get, that I can add value to in terms of letting the AI do some of the heavy lifting, and the nuance can be added by employees. So I think it's a really interesting question. Sorry.
And I will also like to add job quality element to it. So we know that people lose meaningfulness in their work when they see their work as being boring, repetitive. So if technology can take away those boring elements of your work, then as Greer said, then you have freed up time to think how your job can be more interesting. So that's a value add, and that adds or increases the quality of your job.
Great. Yeah, so I just want to also say to the audience, this is an interesting discussion. Please feel free to submit any Q&A through the function. I see one question came through. Actually, I'll mention this now. So is it relevant to mention that AI is also human-driven learning through underlying code, as well as question use implementation driving learning? AI development is dependent on human use. No? Is there any? So I'm just kind of read that quick, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm hearing the question right, it's kind of saying that the development of AI is dependent on humans using AI for AI to also learn from us. Absolutely, and I think that the more sophisticated we get in our use of AI, then the more useful it will become to us. But I think there is also a question is for us, for organizations to think about where can AI kind of shoulder that load, where, as Deepika said, there's some boring or repetitive tasks for someone, and kind of free up time for them to do those. We all have those amazing strategic projects that we know that we want to get to, and somehow there's never enough capacity. So actually, how can organizations think about how do you unlock the innovation and the potential of your employees by giving them time and space through the use of AI?
Yeah.
Deepika.
So I have a question. So for organizations, so there's so much potential with AI, but most people don't really understand what the potential is or how to use it. So is it, and we have a lot of people on this call, on this webinar, small and medium-sized enterprises. So is it worth it to train do you think you should be training your staff, employees in generally understanding AI, and then they can kind of use those tools to figure out how they can do their job in different ways, or understand how the organization might be able to implement AI, or is it better, I guess, in a way to train them in specific AI skills? You know, I guess I'm trying to figure out how do we figure out what AI can take the place of it, who should be doing that?
Absolutely, there is a lot of talk about how digital skills are going to be one of the key skills for future of work, or even the current nature of work. So knowing how to use these digital skills, which not only empowers you, but also frees up that time to move on to other aspects of your work, which are more rewarding, more meaningful, it will continue to be one of the key areas for upskilling and reskilling.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So I think one of the key questions in this conversation has touched on it is, if you are up for it and your people are up for it, how do you figure out how to reskill your employees? What do you do? What's the process that you might follow? Where do you start? And I think there are some key factors that can kind of help guide you in the right direction. The first one is really understanding the skills your people currently have and what you might need in the future. And I think this would be really interesting to know how many people in their organizations truly understand the skills their people bring. Not just what might be in their current position description, but what other skills they might have to contribute to the organization. And there are a few ways you can go about learning this. This can include asking them, which can be the start of a great coaching conversation, which obviously gives the employees an opportunity to talk about their career goals and aspirations as well. Information gleaned from their CVs. You can do kind of formal skills audits of the organization. You can harvest the information within your own position descriptions to look at the capabilities that you know that they must have if they're successful in their roles. And for human skills, you can look at things like 360-degree assessments and kind of some of the other soft skills indicators. It's really important to understand the skills that you have today so that you can understand where you need to focus your efforts in terms of reskilling. Because the next thing you need to think about is how do you know what skills you might need in the future? How do you really think about what that could look like? So things that you will want to think about in this space are, what are current industry trends? What's going on in your industry? What is the demand in the job market like? Who is looking for what? And what are the specific needs of your organization, either based on your strategy or anything that you might be changing in terms of how or what you are doing? What have you heard from your people might be an area of concern or an area where they think needs additional focus? How is your value chain changing? So are you changing the products or services that you offer, how you offer those, how those are generated, etc.? What are the big kind of changes that you are making, including things like introducing new technologies? It's important to conduct a thorough analysis of existing skills and knowledge and understand your long-term goals and objectives to pinpoint those areas where you'll get the most benefit out of reskilling. So, for example, you should also consider looking at things like the age profile of your organization. Are you likely to be losing a chunk of your employees due to retirement in the coming decade or so? What could that mean for you? Are you still building the skills, both of those people, but also the people coming through behind them, to make sure that you don't have a gap? Thinking about what technologies have emerged in recent years, as we've just had this conversation around AI and what some of the possibilities might be there, but also what might be used in particular in your industry that you might want to think about. Taking these kind of steps will allow you to understand the gap between the skills that you have today and the skills that you think you might need in the future. Deepika, is there anything else that organizations should think about in terms of how they assess skills?
Well, Gray, as you mentioned, assessing current skills is the first step towards finding gaps and offering reskilling or upskilling. I don't have necessarily anything further to add to that list. You've provided a great list. I would just say that using more than a few in combination would perhaps give the most comprehensive and reliable data, as measuring skills can be quite a complex process. Once assessed and compared against the required skills, employees need to be communicated as to where do they stand. Do they need upskilling? Do they need reskilling? Being very clear and transparent in the objectives of the skill assessment exercise will be key to ensuring that employees will have a buy-in in the entire process. And measuring continuous progress is equally important. And according to Ceridian's 2023 Pulse of Talent Survey, 70% of New Zealand workers are of flight risk, but when they were asked if they would stay if they had internal career opportunities, then 79% of them said yes. And sometimes people want those internal career opportunities, but they may not have the skills yet to move into those roles. So that's again another opportunity for organizations. That's a business case for retention. How do you help people? How do you give them that internal mobility to have a more meaningful career within their existing organizations?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So I've worked with MBA students and in MBA programs, executive MBA programs. And one of the things that organizations, they'll sponsor people for executive MBA programs. And the employees will get all these new skills and new connections and understand the value of their experience. But then the company is not, there's no opportunity for them to move up within the organization, and they end up leaving. So the company says, well, why are we sponsoring these people for these programs and spending all this money when they end up leaving the organization? So, I guess I'm that's kind of a general statement, but I'm wondering, how do you, when should you be concerned about that? Giving people new skills and that you're training them to leave, or should you be thinking about what should a lot of times people come into emotional intelligence or leadership, the programs we're running, the short courses, and is it okay to do general training, or does it really need to be very focused on the job set, I guess is what I'm asking.
It's a good question, and we'll touch on it in a moment. But I think the key thing is, when you're thinking about reskilling and upskilling, you really also need to be talking to your people about what is the future. What is the future? For what are they upskilling or reskilling? So are they upskilling or reskilling because their role will change with new technology, for example, coming in, or some other change in focus? Or are you supporting them to make that next career step? And if so, communicating to them about what that could look like and how you kind of co-develop that together. I think, it's always really important, as Deepika touched on before, to help employers understand the why they're doing this, why they're going to this effort. Either whether that's that they are likely to remain in their current job, or that there's a different role for them down the future. I think, is there a risk that people leave when you reskill or upskill? Yes, but generally they will, as we've said, really appreciate that an organization is invested in them. What they really want to understand is the why. Help me understand why I'm doing this, and then they're much more likely to stay. But Deepika, did you have anything you wanted to expand on with that?
No, I would just like to emphasize the buy-in. People need to understand the why of what they are doing, how it is going to benefit them, how it is going to benefit their future, how is it going to benefit the organization. And back to what you said, Dave, and as Grace said, that we will touch upon that a bit down during the presentation, but context-specific training is extremely important. And it's not, yes, there's a question in the chat which talks about generic skills. So yes, some generic training on generic skills could be important, especially if they are core to an organization's performance, but at the same time, training very specific to a particular level, particular role, particular functional area is also equally important.
Awesome. So carrying on to more specifics of your question, Dave, what are the kind of skills that you might want to think about reskilling your staff in? So it's important to think about both the kind of hard skills and the soft skills. And I think we've briefly touched on this to date. On this page is kind of just a list of a few hard and soft skills that were listed as being desired by a range of employers when surveyed by LinkedIn. So how should we consider both hard and soft skills, acknowledging each has a role in creating great employees? Hard skills are essential for specific job functions and can be measured more easily, such as expertise in a particular software application. However, soft skills such as communication, leadership, and problem solving are increasingly recognized as vital for success in the modern workplace. With automation and artificial intelligence on the rise, many routine and repetitive tasks traditionally requiring hard skills are being automated, making soft skills like creativity and adaptability more valuable. As workplaces become even more diverse and global, cultural awareness and communication skills become more important too. Soft skills are so important that companies are willing to consider candidates who may not have all the hard skills required for a role, as long as they exhibit strong soft skills and they're a good fit for the position. If we think about soft skills, effective communication, outstanding customer service, strong leadership, and efficient teamwork are some of the most crucial soft skills for any business to excel in today's competitive landscape. Effective communication allows you to build strong relationships with customers, stakeholders, and colleagues. Exceptional customer service ensures that customers feel valued and satisfied in return. Marketing presents a business's story to its client base, while strong leadership inspires employees to work together towards a shared vision. And finally, teamwork ensures that employees collaborate effectively to achieve common goals, ultimately contributing to the overall success of the organization. While every business is different, investing in the development of these soft skills among staff is no longer a nice to have. It's pretty much table stakes. Deepika, anything you want to add in terms of other soft skills that you've seen as important?
Well, Greer, a good list, but I would like to add two more soft skills into that list, particularly from an individual's point of view. The first one is adaptability, which is the ability to adapt in the face of change. When we ask people to upskill or reskill, we are in a way asking people to change. So being adaptive to these changes, in my mind, is a key soft skill. Adaptable people look for opportunities in the face of change. They take practical actions needed to perform differently as a result of the change. So someone willing to adapt to change will also keep on learning and increasing their employability. The second one I want to talk about is self-awareness. In her book, Peak Mind, that I mentioned earlier, Amishi Jha talks about meta self-awareness, which is the ability not just be aware of your own thoughts, but also about all the underlying assumptions and biases behind those thoughts. So when we are self-aware at a meta level, we can understand our own resistance to changes, such as a need to upskill or reskill. And then once we understand those, we are more eager, or we are more open to go for skill enhancement. And the beauty of all these soft skills is that they are transferable. And this transferability allows for reskilling for sectors that are growing or are yet to grow or even yet to emerge.
Thank you. And when we think about hard skills, they're a little bit trickier, as they tend to be very specific to the business environment that you operate within. For example, a wood manufacturer that is looking to leverage new computer-based processing technology is going to seek a very different hard or technical skills to a call center, for example. However, we've identified 5 areas we believe are critical across many businesses operating in New Zealand. Software development skills allow businesses to create custom solutions that meet their unique needs, while customer relationship management skills help to build long-term relationship with customers. Financial management enables businesses to make informed decisions and manage resources effectively. Data analysis helps businesses to make sense of their data and gain insights that can drive growth and innovation. And finally, cloud computing skills are crucial for businesses to take advantage of the flexibility and scalability offered by cloud-based technologies. This is a particular area of growth that we're seeing in the market at the moment, and you may see lots of job ads, for example, in this space. So that's a really good indication that that's a hard skill that is increasingly being looked for across a breadth of organizations in the market. Deepika, anything you wanted to add around these hard skills?
Well, nothing specific here except to reiterate what you said about hard skills being context specific. They depend on the industry that your organization is a part of. They depend on the type of role you have. They depend on the functional area. But just imagine a combination of right hard skills and soft skills could be so potent, and it can really set up people and organizations on that perpetual path of success.
Yeah, so one of the things we do with our programs, with our leadership journey programs or our custom programs with organizations, is a lot of companies want to know they're putting people through these training programs, these leadership development programs, but how is it affecting their performance? What new skills are they gaining, and how can they track that? And it can be really a challenge. I mean, one of the simple things we do is we'll let their manager know that they're doing, this training and the type of things they learn, so that it can be brought into the conversation. They can ask about the training that they've gone through, and so the employee understands that, the importance of it. Are there any other ways that organizations, can track the learning and development to give recognition for doing it, as well as to see if they really are gaining things, evaluating the training?
Yeah, I think, and some of this comes back to both the why of the training, understanding what the why is, because obviously some of it, if that's thinking about a new technology, etc., it'll be as that technology is implemented, being able to see, whether the person has the skills to use it, but also some of it is thinking about that question that we had at the beginning around how do you understand the skills people have today? So that's not a one-off process. You need to constantly be thinking about the skills that your workforce has, partly because you're training them and reskilling them, we hope, but also because your workforce is changing all the time. So that's not a single kind of static moment in time process. That should be something that you're thinking about a lot. And finally, the other thing will be thinking about job design. So as people are reskilling and upskilling, you should be thinking about how to incorporate that into their role design, either through thinking about what is the step into the next role, or a lateral role with different complexities, or how you incorporate it into their job today. And that can really help you also understand how they're progressing in terms of the development of those skills. But Deepika, is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of that assessment?
Just one thing leading to what you said about job design. I think job design basically is organizations telling people that there is this job description that you have, but then again, going a step further from there and asking people to craft their jobs based on the job design that they have, and look at opportunities where they could actually incorporate this learning and development into how they perform their role, make it more interesting, and in that process, learn new skills.
Deepika, there's just a question. Somebody's asked about the name and the author of the book that you had been referring to.
Yes, absolutely. It's called The Peak Mind by Dr. Amishi Jha. And what I can do is that perhaps, Dave, I can send you the entire name of the book and the author, and then you can send it to the attendees.
Great, thank you.
On this page, just put up a bit of a case study around upskilling and reskilling in the US job market. So we acknowledge that there are a range of reskilling methods, and obviously David's touched on the important work that the University of Auckland does around that. There's also on-the-job experience through projects and other types of on-the-job learning, coaching, and other kinds of structured training, either through kind of formal tertiary qualifications, informal training, training through your vocational training through your workplace, etc. So there are a number of options available when you're thinking about how can we upskill our employees once you've identified what you need to upskill them on. And so as this example, American businesses have been facing a challenge in finding skilled talent, and partly due to demographic shifts, meaning employers are now considering upskilling and reskilling older workers to help fill critical talent shortages. This is promoting more effective utilization of the workforce as it stands and addresses the talent gap, and also brings in valuable experience and expertise from seasoned professionals. So as an example of how this is also being implemented in New Zealand, we're starting to see coding schools pop up, such as Dev Academy. NZQA has started to recognise micro-credentials, which many of you may already have within your organisation. These are small bite-sized pieces of learning that can be combined to recognise as a formal education achievement, like a certificate over time. One of the key things that you need to consider when you're upskilling and the methods of upskilling is how quickly do you need upskilling or reskilling to happen? Because this might influence whether you're going to go for a more formal classroom-based learning approach or an on-the-job-based learning approach, some combination thereof, or something else. So, for example, if you're doing a technology implementation, you'll have a specific date that you need your employees to kind of be up to speed as you're implementing that new technology. Whereas actually, if you're thinking about a changing strategy over time, or what AI might mean for your business, for example, you may be able to reskill your employees a little at a time and adapt as your workforce is developing to start to bring in some of those new ways of working a little bit at a time. There are some real risks to kind of what I would call big bang reskilling, which is, where typically you have a piece of technology that's dropping and people need to start using that on a specific date. And so some of that is around the recency effect. So how close to when the person is going to need to use that knowledge are they really developing it? And how can you make that work for your workforce? So if you're thinking about micro-credentials, how do you therefore think about how those can build up to be something that over time on a specific date an employee has got all of the skills and knowledge they need to be able to adapt to that new way of working. So there can be some real benefits from progressive reskilling and thinking about how you incorporate over time the use of new skills, whether that be through hard skills, through technology, or softer skills, how you can kind of incorporate that over time into employees' roles to really solidify that learning and help them make the next step and kind of continue to develop their skills. Deepika, I wonder if you have anything you want to add about the efficacy of different methods of learning or the mix of methods of learning.
Yeah, well, upskilling and reskilling require establishing the right kind of programs, making them affordable, and giving people incentives to participate that Dave touched upon earlier. And I think that it is very important to have a very strong ecosystem that brings different stakeholders together: government, businesses, educational institutions. How do they co-create and find innovative ways to upskill and reskill, where technology empowers rather than simply replaces human labor? There are many different methods that you have listed on the slide that can work very well. But before deciding on a method or step of methods, it's important to take a step back and look at that why. That is, understanding how do people learn at certain levels, certain positions, specific occupations, and why would they even want to learn? On the one hand, with people being very time poor, with so many distractions around them, self-directed, flexible, micro-learning is a good option. Whereas on the other hand, there is solid research that relationships help learning by stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So study groups and workshops can really help people process new ideas and learn more rather than when they're working alone. And this is where businesses can partner and collaborate with educational institutions in creating customized programs. And I also believe that reflection is a very important way to learn, and reflection can be done individually as well as alongside others to understand what worked and why. And the efficacy of these methods needs to be evaluated at regular intervals by using big data. What time do people engage with learning? For how long? Which methods capture them the most? Any objective way of assessing the effectiveness? Any anecdotal evidence that can be created? So having a clear plan on how to evaluate effectiveness is extremely important. Otherwise, the investment in skilling will be made without fully understanding what impact it has had. We shouldn't simply assume that training works or transfers to the job.
And one of the things that you need to think about when you are upskilling or reskilling, if you are going to use some sort of formal training, is the training cycle. So developing a comprehensive training plan based in your why, as Deepika has noted, is really important. It should be tailored to your employees' needs and preferences and included a variety of methods that might work for different reasons, like classroom sessions, online courses, on-the-job training, and mentorship programs. Providing ongoing support and feedback to your employees throughout the reskilling process is really important so that they can effectively apply their new skills and knowledge. And also letting them experiment with that new skill and knowledge, letting them know it's okay to not have all the answers on day one will be really important. And remember, you aren't alone. As we discussed, the design and development phases can leverage the resources of the training and development network, including the University of Auckland and other institutions. You won't be the only one facing an upskilling challenge. Consider what exists in the market to facilitate upskilling and reskilling, how you might, as an organisation, create the space for effective learning alongside operations, or whether you can band together with other organisations who may be facing similar challenges to think about how upskilling and reskilling could work. Another important aspect of reskilling staff is ensuring that your organisation has the right culture and infrastructure in place to support ongoing learning and development. This can involve a range of different strategies, such as creating a culture of continuous learning, providing access to training and development resources, and encouraging employees to take ownership of their own professional development. Building a learning culture within your company can bring numerous benefits, including increased employee engagement, high retention rates, and improved productivity. As we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, when employees feel their employer is investing in their professional development, they're more likely to feel valued and motivated to stay within the company, creating a positive workplace culture that attracts new talent and strengthens your overall reputation as an organisation. Deepika, anything you wanted to discuss on organisational culture and the link to learning?
Well, making upskilling and reskilling part of the firm's purpose is an important way to move forward. And as World Economic Forum says, make a clear people plan. The role of leaders in inspiring employees towards a mindset of continuous skill improvement is extremely important. You have mentioned inclusivity on the slide, which I think is very, very important. To ensure that large-scale upskilling does not increase inequality, policies will need to be put in place to guarantee everyone has the opportunity to participate. There are risks that high-skilled workers may end up with better access to training, as they may be more motivated to undertake that training and extract greater benefit from it because of their pre-existing higher skill level. So an equity lens in reskilling and upskilling is important to have as part of that learning culture.
Great. We only have a couple minutes left. Greer, I think you just have one more slide.
Yeah, just a summary slide, really.
Great.
It's important to recognize this isn't the be all and end all, but it can be an important positive driver to think about upskilling and reskilling in terms of organizational success. I will stop sharing my screen just one moment.
Okay, great. Greer, I guess maybe you could talk about how PwC works with organizations to help them with what we're talking about today. And, really so much valuable information was given. If they wanted to work with you, what type of work do you do?
Absolutely. So we work with organizations throughout that cycle, everything from understanding where people are at today, what skills exist within their organization, as well as identifying what skills might be required in the future and the gaps between those, and then helping them develop some plans for how to bridge those gaps and what their options are around how to upskill and reskill their staff. So we kind of help across the breadth of that life cycle, depending on what different organizations need.
Great, thanks. So yeah, and the University of Auckland, we also work with HR and L&D leaders and business leaders to look at what is needed in the organization as far as development and training, why, and then give advice and provide programs that you can roll out. So certainly we overlap with PwC in some ways, but I think they're doing more of a consulting basis. We are actually running a lot of the programs with our academics like Deepika. And what we can do also is share case studies. So we work with lots of organizations and we can share, obviously anonymous, but case studies of companies we work for and benchmarking with the organization. So I'll follow up with an email, and please contact contact us, and we'd be very happy to have a consultation with you on how we might be able to work together. And I see our time is about up. So I'd really like to thank Greer and Topeka for, really a fantastic, we've done a number of webinars, and I think this was great. So much information in such a short amount of time. Thank you for all the preparation, and it was just really great. So thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everybody. We had over 100 people join, so I'd like to thank everybody who joined the webinar today. And we'll send out some follow-up information. Some people asked about, we have a recording, so we'll have a recording. And some people asked about sending out the presentation. I just need to check with our speakers, but we're happy to send that out if that's possible. And feel free to follow up with me if I can answer any questions. So thank you very much, everybody. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day and a fantastic holiday, which is coming up. And the kids are out of school, so we can all be happy with that. Okay, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.